What's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about some federal agencies and why they're still not allowing people to smoke marijuana. But first, before we get to that, just a little bit of an update on that Omnibus Bill that has been being worked on with Republicans and Democrats. It's under talks right now. Hopefully it's going to happen sometime this summer, where we see kind of this smaller bill deal with the smaller issues that have bipartisan support in the Senate. Last week when we first talked about it, it was going to include expungements, incentivizing jurisdictions to have expungements happen in their areas, and then also safe banking, allow banks to work with marijuana industrial places. Now it seems like the talks are actually more expansive than we even knew at the time. It's actually more topics have been discussed, and the bill might be even bigger than we thought, which is great. That's like awesome, the fact that that's going to happen, if this does happen. It's still unsure whether or not Chuck Schumer would allow this to happen, because he has this big legalization bill that's going to come out in August, so we'll see. But anyway, the topics that were discussed go much further than those two topics, which now include veterans' medical cannabis access, so access to more medicinal marijuana for veterans, research expansion, so allowing even more research to happen at a federal level, which means that they're stronger, they're sturdier studies that are happening, and just giving more access and money to these research facilities. Marijuana industry access to small business administration programs, which would be giving grant money, allowing grant money to go to marijuana industry companies, as opposed to not allowing them to be a part of that. And finally, broader drug sentencing reform, which is a vague one. It could mean something with the Controlled Substances Act, or it could just be something else. I'm not entirely sure what that's saying, but the other three are great news, and if that all gets kind of bundled into this bill that we see in the summer, that's awesome. So we have that going on, and we have all of these things that are kind of getting the federal side of our government on board on marijuana, and then we see stories like this one, which is talking about the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, who just sent out a memo to their staff, just reminding them that you cannot smoke marijuana if you want to be a part of the EPA. You can't smoke it, you can't do it on your off time, you can't do any of that, even if you're in a state that has legal marijuana. They're saying that that's grounds for punishment, even termination at some point, and it goes even beyond that, which is to say that you can't even invest in marijuana stocks, and if you do, you may see some of your security clearances stripped from you, and you can't look at sensitive material, which then could jeopardize your job if that's part of your job. So we've seen this in the past in the Biden administration. Even last week, we saw a story saying that interns will be drug tested if they want to work for the Biden administration, and they can't have marijuana in their system. There seems to be a reason why we're not hearing Biden talk about marijuana, and it's that he's staunchly against it. He will not budge on this. He will not allow people in his administration to budge on it. He will not allow other agencies to budge on it. And this does feel more and more like it's coming from the top. So in terms of legalization efforts, I don't believe he would sign something even if there was a lot of pressure from his own party. This is a bummer. It's showing his age. There are a lot of other things that are showing his age. This one is one of those. Hopefully with enough pressure, once bills start to come out and bipartisan bills start to come out, and he realizes that it would be so politically disadvantageous of him to not have a marijuana position, then he will maybe start to flip-flop at that point. But as for now, this is showing, this story and then other stories are showing that he's really not on board. And then we go to Canada, which has a very different view on marijuana. Of course, they're very supportive of it. They have had marijuana legalized for years now. And now they're getting into the nitty-gritty kind of changing of laws, which is a necessary aspect to this whole thing. When a country legalizes something this expansive, there are always going to be some hiccups, some things that didn't quite work out the way they wanted them to, and they have to kind of change around. around. We're seeing that happen in California right now, where the taxes are too high, so now we're kind of having to re-regulate and find the right balance there so that the illicit market doesn't come through. Well, a similar thing is happening in Canada with the illicit market when it comes to edibles, because they have, ever since cannabis was legalized in Canada, they had a cap on edible THC levels at 10 milligrams, which is relatively low. I think that's kind of what you want when you take an edible, because they can be really, really powerful. They don't kick in until like an hour from now, and you might just get way, way, way too high to the point where it would ruin your day or multiple days. And it's happened to me, it's happened to friends of mine, so the edibles are scary. But that was probably kind of the motivation behind them kind of capping at 10 milligrams. However, there are a lot of people who know what they're doing with edibles, and they want a higher dosage. And the only way for them to get that higher dosage is to go to the illicit market. And the illicit market for edibles has kind of been taking a lot of the business away from the legal market in the country. So now there are people who are really kind of urging the feds to allow that cap to raise to 100 milligrams. And that seems like a far, far distance from 10 to 100, 10 times the amount. But look as far as California or Colorado or other places in the US where the cap is 100 milligrams. There's precedent for this, at least in the US, where people know how to deal with it. They know that when you're getting a legal amount in THC, you can trust that amount, and you know what to take and you know how much to take. Whereas when you go to the illicit market and it says 100 milligrams, it might not be 100 milligrams. They don't have the best testing for that stuff, and it's all over the place. It fluctuates. So this is a fascinating thing to see happen in Canada, and it shows where we're going to be in a few years once we finally legalize in the States, that we're gonna have to change things around. We're gonna have to adjust depending on the statistics we get, depending on the battle, the forever constant battle between the illicit market and the legal market, which is going to be there for a long time. So it'll be interesting to see if this does rise with pressure, with more and more pressure coming at the government in Canada. Yeah, and that's kind of what we have today. We'll be back on Friday with some more news and some more new music. I'll see you then.